Hey guys, it's May with The Maylee Show. Here's another special episode of The Maylee Show that I'm doing because of obviously the unprecedented, extraordinary times that we're living in right now due to the coronavirus. The episode that we did before this one, I brought together some ER doctors who gave me firsthand accounts of what they're dealing with on the front lines. They are the true heroes. And also a researcher, a lead scientist at a pharmaceutical company that's fast tracking a vaccine for COVID-19. Hopefully that was really informative for all of you, because I really wanted to do an episode that got real information to you from a health perspective and from a research perspective, because there's still so much misinformation out there. And I know that a lot of you have been writing to us wondering, like, what's right, what's wrong, what should I believe? So I really felt compelled to do an episode that went directly to the source, to the people who are witnessing it, experiencing it, and know what's going on. And they too have questions and anxiety about what's happening. So if you haven't watched that episode, please go and do so, because I think you will get some really good, solid information that might help you better understand the situation. I have to admit, I am feeling very overwhelmed, exhausted, frustrated, and disheartened by what's happening all around in so many different ways for all of us. But I did put out a quick video ranting a little bit about Donald Trump, because in a press conference today, which is Wednesday, he doubled down again on calling it the Chinese virus, even when he got some pushback from a correspondent. And she asked him, why do you keep saying this? Because there are a lot of incidents of hate crimes going on against Asians. And he just doubled down again and didn't take any responsibility and just didn't want to admit to anything. And then another correspondent from NPR, I believe, she then mentioned that a CBS correspondent was at the White House, and a White House staffer said to her face, "Oh, Kung flu." And she point blank asked the president if that was racist, and he said no. So I am at the point of such utter disbelief in terms of what's happening, and that this is being fueled by the president of the United States with no remorse and no indication whatsoever that he thinks this is a bad thing. So I know all of you out there feel the same way. And I wish I could provide some comfort somehow. And maybe the show is, and maybe me speaking out about it is helping. But I need you guys to send me your strength and good vibes, because I am feeling exhausted and I feel like my fire is kind of running a little bit low, but you know what? Don't worry. I'm not going to let it go out. I'm going to keep doing this because somebody has to. So the one thing I do want to say, though, is for those of you who still think this isn't a serious situation with this virus and the spread of it, and, we're hearing a lot of talk about millennials and young people who think they're immune, or at least they won't get so sick. Well, that's now being proven that that's not actually accurate, because now the data is coming out of China, South Korea, France, that people under 50 are being impacted and they're getting gravely ill. So for you to think that you are exempt from this and the seriousness of this is stupid, okay? It's just stupid. And also the fact that you think that you can go out and still go to bars and have parties and get together and think that's going to be okay, that's stupid too, because you will be a carrier. The highest number of those carrying the virus are younger people. So you will kill somebody, Okay. You will aid in killing somebody else who is weaker, who's older, who's sicker. Okay. So stay home. All right. Make a little bit of a sacrifice. Don't be so fucking selfish. Okay. Stay the fuck home. This is serious, you guys. You know, I can't say it strongly enough, clearly. Okay. You need to take this seriously and heed the guidelines, heed the warnings. Oh, God. Okay. Anyway, this upcoming episode, I'm not even trying to be consistent. Usually I would have worn the same outfit that I wore in the interviews that were recorded just to make it look the same. But at this point, those things don't really matter. I care more about the content of the show. So the first interview I do for the show is with a security expert. And he's going to talk about how we can personally feel more secure and safe in this environment, especially Asians, because of what's going on with all the hate crimes. So his name is Jeff Zisner. And I want to say that loud and clear. His name is Jeff, because in the interview, for some reason, I thought his name was Jess. So I'm calling him Jess the whole time. I feel so awful, but it's Jeff Zisner. Okay, so here we go with that interview. Okay, and joining me now is Jess Zisner. He's the president and CEO of Aegis Security and Investigations here in Los Angeles. The company specializes in high-end customer service-focused security, investigative training, and consulting solutions. Jess, welcome to the Mei Lee Show. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. It's been a wild ride so far.
It sure has. And listen, the reason why I contacted you and wanted to talk about this particular subject is about personal security and sort of the heightened tensions that are resulting in this coronavirus on so many levels, right? But particularly for the Asian American community, as you probably are aware, there are a lot of, racist assaults, both verbal and physical, going on in the United States as well as around the world. And, people are scared. The fear factor is rising by the day. So wondering from your security perspective, I mean, when something like this happens, what are people supposed to do?
People are interesting. They like to place blame.
Yeah.
And they like to have a reason to respond in a way that they feel is constructive.
Right.
And in this particular case, the originating factor came from China.
Right.
And it snowballed very, very quickly. And if you look at it through a very simple lens, it's a very easy justification to make.
Yeah.
But that's not the whole story. As a matter of fact, that's a very small sliver of the story.
Right.
And I think that's where people are getting lost.
Because the problem is that, because of that conclusion that people are drawing, they're now just doing a broad brushstroke of all Asians, right? Like me. I'm Korean American, was born in the States, and yet we're all just being looked upon as the same and being blamed for this virus. And I think that's what's causing the alarm amongst just people who look Asian, right? We're just being attacked for just being Asian. So from a practical point of view, well, first of all, I'm curious, Jess, are you getting any calls or people wanting to talk to you or, learn about your services because of this, or just the coronavirus in general?
So absolutely, the short answer is absolutely.
Yeah.
We've been extremely busy the last 3 to 4 days.
Wow.
Suspending services in some of our customers. We service hotels and restaurants and schools and churches and synagogues.
Okay.
And places where people congregate. And so we're busy suspending these services, but then turning around and assisting some of these sites as well as manufacturing, logistics, distribution centers to maintain their security in a period of potential civil unrest. And they're looking to get ahead of it and protect their assets and protect their operations so they can continue to operate and support the society that is now going to be understanding that the grim reality is this is our new normal, at least for a little while.
Right. So people are preparing, I guess I can say, for the worst in many ways.
Yeah, people are preparing for the worst. I mean, we see this as evidenced by how the general public has responded over the last few days.
Yeah.
There are mayors and governors getting on TV and getting on social media
Right.
and sharing, pictures of them walking through warehouses full of material that's ready to go out and get sold.
Right. Right.
Because people are scared. People need something to latch onto and something that will make them feel better.
Right.
And prepping for potentially the worst is something that makes you feel like you're doing something proactive.
So,
and I get that.
So yeah, I mean, it is understandable because I think fear makes you do some of the most extreme things sometimes, like what we were just saying, people just lashing out and just openly, assaulting Asians just because they want a scapegoat. So in your line of work, then I know you also have workshops to train, people for self-defense and, other security, measures. From a practical point of view, though, what would you recommend people do, particularly in the Asian American community, because they're so scared? I mean, there are people who are telling me they're literally scared to go outside, take mass transit, or just even be on the sidewalk because they're hearing about these stories of people getting stabbed and beaten and spit on and punched. So what would you, from a professional perspective, advise people to do to try to either stay safer or calm down or something that will help them deal with this particular situation that we're in?
It's a very complex problem, and I'll try to give you as many quick and easy tools that you can use in your own life and in the lives of your friends and family that would kind of help them get through this point in time.
Okay.
The first is consider your environment like spheres of influence or layers of an onion. Can you protect yourself wherever you happen to be? Can you protect the people around you wherever you happen to be? Can you protect your home? Can you protect your workplace? Can you protect yourself in transit? And whatever point in your life you decide that you can no longer protect yourself, if you don't feel comfortable going somewhere, then you probably shouldn't do it. That's the first thing.
Okay.
From a psychological standpoint, if you feel uneasy about going into an area for any reason, you probably shouldn't. And the same goes for going into a bad neighborhood.
Right.
At night. I'm sure we're both in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
There are places in LA that you and I would never want to go at night.
Right.
For obvious reasons. Well, the same applies to personal safety in a tumultuous time like this.
Okay.
There's places that you don't want to go. There's places that you do.
All right. So use your judgment. Judgment. Yeah.
Yeah. Use your judgment. Exercise good judgment. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, San Francisco, a couple hours ago, released a statement where they're asking the city to effectively lock down.
Right. Right.
I think doing that either way makes good sense. This COVID-19 virus transmits person to person.
Yep.
If you can minimize your contact with people, then you're minimizing your risk to the virus.
Right.
But you're also minimizing your risk to potential side effects of the virus, which includes this kind of aggravated hate crime.
Right. Right.
As a result of it. So if you can stay home, stay home.
Right. Okay.
If you can't stay home, maybe go out with a group of people. Plan on going out together. Your family, your neighbor. Go together, travel in small groups.
Right. Right.
I think the CDC just released up to 10 people.
Yeah.
Well, if you're
no
moving
more than
with 10
10
people.
Right. But even if you're with one other person, you're going to feel a little bit more secure than being completely alone.
And 3 and 4 and 5. I mean, if you have a full car of people,
right,
then you're probably going to feel a lot safer than you would otherwise be by yourself.
Sure, and in
the last,
yeah. So I was just going to say, an antagonizer would be maybe less likely to attack a group of people, right?
Correct, and it has to do with just a numbers game. Bad guys like to get away with what they're going to do,
right,
and get away with it without getting themselves hurt.
Sure.
And so if they can do that, and you're by yourself here, and you're potentially an easy victim.
Right.
Versus if you're with a group of people, it's going to be more difficult.
Okay, makes sense.
The last thing I would say is go to what you're familiar with, or go to where you're comfortable. Now, I'm not saying that the only place to go is the Galleria Market.
Yeah.
That's not the case. But if you're concerned about hate-related targeting within the community, if you go to places that are traditionally focused around that subsection of the community, whatever area you live in, Los Angeles or around the world, go there.
Right.
There's safety in numbers. There's safety in familiarity. People aren't going to go somewhere that they know they're going to have an uphill battle trying to cause whatever mischief or crime they're looking to cause.
Right.
Path of least resistance for the bad guy is what they're looking to do.
I mean, what's sad about that, though, Jess, I have to admit, is that it's virtually suggesting like segregation to a certain extent. And I know that's an extreme word, but it's really causing us to ask ourselves, wow, can I not even go somewhere where I don't look the same as other people? And that is a slippery slope, right, of going backwards in history for all of us.
Well, I'm not in any way suggesting any sort of segregation.
No, of course not. It's just the thought of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I am suggesting is practicing good risk management.
Yeah. Right.
And if you feel that going to one place is higher risk than going to another place,
sure,
regardless of the reason, then maybe you should make that judgment call and go to the lower risk.
Right. At least now, because of what's happening. I mean, we're in extraordinary times right now. So, if this weren't happening, we wouldn't think twice. But right now, we actually do have to think that way, don't we?
Absolutely. And I would guide the guiding principle behind all of this is if it seems like it's a good idea, you should probably do it. And if it doesn't seem like it's a good idea, you probably shouldn't.
Right.
And if your conscience or your gut is telling you one thing or the other, stick with that, because chances are it's probably going to be right.
And they always say, security experts always say this, and self-defense experts, they always say that your gut really is, you should always go with your gut, because that instinct is something inside you telling you what to do.
Yeah, and that's been emulated in multiple books, and multiple documentaries,
right,
in movies and in television. Going with your gut tends to create the preferred response.
Yeah.
And if you think back to when you were in school, remember the last test you took that you bubbled in B and then crossed it out and bubbled in C?
Yeah.
Well, guess which answer was right?
Right. Yeah, I know.
Probably B.
Yeah, they always say never question your gut, right? So that is good advice, I think, in any situation. Well, Jess, I do wonder about this, because before we started the actual interview, we were chatting. There is a rise in just overall fear just within society. It doesn't matter what ethnicity or what background. And we're starting to see things like, people racing to the gun shops to, load up on guns and ammunition and things like that. So are you also seeing a rise in people trying to protect themselves because they're afraid that there's going to be civil and social unrest?
People are craving the ability to be proactive in managing their own personal safety.
Mm.
And so whether that is stocking up on toilet paper, if it makes you feel good, that's what people are doing.
Right.
If you're stocking up on ammo, makes you feel good, that's why people are doing it.
Right.
Now, I do think there is going to be an uptick in property-related crime because more people are out, less people are busy, people are getting laid off, people need money, people need things, people need resources.
And they're frustrated and scared.
Compounding factors,
yeah, of course.
They're frustrated and scared. I think there's going to be a higher elevated number of property crime.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think it's going to raise to the level of civil unrest. And that's because we're combating a virus,
right,
an international pandemic that the CDC has just released to stay in groups of less than 10.
Yep.
Now, remember I said bad guys don't like getting hurt?
Right.
Well, bad guys don't like getting sick either.
Right. So that's already a
it makes
natural.
it kind of tough to riot.
Yeah, it's a natural deterrent already for them, right?
The
Yeah,
natural deterrent. Yeah, it kind of makes it tough to riot in the streets if the people around you are sick.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't
Okay.
necessarily think we're gonna get to that point. Now, if there's a shortage in all sorts of like basic necessities, that might be a little bit different.
Yeah,
But as of right now, that's not the case. We've got plenty of resources.
right.
Supply chains are doing pretty well. Logistics are working. International trade is still happening.
Yeah, and they're
Society,
promising.
as we know it,
Yeah, they're promising that grocery stores they're not going to run out of food. This is not a food shortage. This is not a food shortage. This is dealing with a health crisis.
this is a health crisis, and if we work together as a community, and if we're able to support one another, we're going to make a lot of strides in being able to. They're calling it flatten the curve.
Right.
Try to
right.
reduce the impact of the pandemic and spread it out over time.
Yeah. Well, but just
and it only comes from working together.
Yeah, of course. We have to come together because that's the only way we're all going to get through this. Let me ask you, you personally, if you've done anything differently since this all started in terms of security or safety or anything that you have been doing yourself for your family and yourself.
Yeah, so I've got snipers on my roof and mines in my No, so,
not yet, at least.
Not yet. Practicing good safety measures that any typical person should practice in any major urban environment.
Mm-hmm.
Things like locking your door, turning on your lights, making sure that your security cameras are operational, making sure you have food and water, and all the things that you may need if you're home for an extended period of time.
Right.
Very similar to like an earthquake.
Right.
So practicing your communications plans, talking to your friends. I had a good friend of mine say, "Hey, can you remind me of your address? I'm gonna send it to my mom in case she can't get a hold of me." Like being able to relay that kind of information and have backup plans in place, but that's just a good thing to do.
Yeah.
And this is a time that will remind us that we need to have those plans.
No, that's good advice. And also, how many phone numbers do any of us have memorized in this day and age of having a smartphone, right? No, I mean, I don't know anybody's
Virtually
number
none.
except literally my mother's, I think. So this is a good reminder to actually have that information somewhere else rather than just on your phone, right?
Yeah. What if your phone dies? What if the power goes out for something?
Right.
What, God forbid, what if there was another crisis? What if we had an earthquake right now?
Right. Oh God, don't
How
even
would that
say
change
Jess,
the dynamic,
don't even
right?
say it. Oh my God. No, that just, that would be beyond.
Like my job, like my career is built on, number one, supplying guard service throughout California.
Yeah.
But number two, being a security expert is the definition of planning for the worst.
Yeah, you're right.
And if we plan for the worst, okay, then we can scale it back.
Yep. Can I ask you one thing though about going back to sort of the Asian community and how there's this heightened fear because of what's happening? The other statistic that's coming out is that gun ownership amongst Asian Americans is the lowest. However, because of what's been happening, Asians, particularly Chinese, are racing to buy guns. So, I've been saying on my podcast, my God, this is adding fuel to the fire and, combating the violence with perhaps even more violence. So that, what do you say about that? I mean, I don't even know what you can say about that, honestly. But again, that's human nature to try to protect yourself. But boy, is that sort of a powder keg, right?
Yeah. Being able to protect yourself with something that feels like it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I totally understand. Firearms, regardless of where you live, gives you that sense of an equalizer, right?
Yeah.
Someone who's much bigger than you, much stronger than you, who maybe has much better training than you, tries to attack you and you have a gun.
Yeah.
That's an equalizer. Doesn't matter who you are, you can now defend yourself. But I will be cautious in saying that if you are thinking about it or you have already purchased a gun, just having a gun doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to use it.
Yeah, exactly.
But in fact, a lot of times people are armed and either don't use it or improperly use it or have it taken from them.
Right.
So just going out and buying a gun doesn't make you proficient.
Yeah.
You have to get trained. You have to be practiced. You have to be disciplined. If you don't know what you're doing with it, it could be more of something that could go wrong.
Yeah, no.
Something that could go right.
Somebody wrote in an article about that saying, God, can you imagine being a new gun owner, not really knowing how to use it, but then on top of that, all these kids are now home because school is out. And, we hear about this all the time of kids getting a hold of a gun and shooting it and dying. So, we could, of course, talk about multiple possibilities, and many of them tragic, but unfortunately, this is what is happening now, right? In a crisis, people do have knee-jerk reactions to how they're dealing with this, this heightened fear and anxiety and the great unknown. This is how people
here in America.
Yeah,
our knee-jerk reaction is toilet paper and water.
Go figure, Jess. I still don't understand the toilet paper thing, but hey, if that makes, like you said, if that makes people feel better, then okay. All right. Well, listen, Jess, do you have any last words for my viewers and listeners on this particular subject? I mean, we may be in for the long haul here. We don't know. Let's hope not. But if that's indeed the case, then any last words of wisdom for us?
Yeah. So let's all work together to, number one, take this time to evaluate what we're doing as individuals and within our family.
Yep.
To make sure that we're doing everything we can, not only to combat the virus, but also to make sure our plans are in place and to make sure our equipment and tools are in place.
Yeah.
To make sure that we have a strategy going forward. So whether it's this or anything else that could potentially happen in the world, that we're that much better off and that much more prepared for it. And then gives us the opportunity to get ahead and come up with something that is not going to make us reactive, but make us proactive.
Right.
And again, if you feel like something is a good idea, whatever it is, go with your gut.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then don't do it, and you'll probably be better off.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, I think what I've been telling people, you got to be vigilant. Maybe just be a little bit more aware of your surroundings also, and not sort of just ignore maybe some signs that you see around you. Just go again, like you're saying.
To piggyback on that, we have a ton of information, the self promotional advertising here.
Yeah.
But we do have a ton of really valuable information on our website. It's aegis.com.
Okay, great.
Our blog is full of things that you could do for yourself, things that you could do for your home, things that you could do if you're traveling and you're already out, things that you can do for free. We also have paid training on our website that's online regarding situational awareness and active shooters and that kind of stuff. So if you're looking for resources, our website obviously has a lot, but check online, look at the government resources, and really use them. That's what they're there for.
No, that's great information, and it's all out there. I'm on your website right now, and I see it. So it's there for us to kind of absorb and hopefully take some of this information and apply it. And I think that psychologically may make some people feel better, at least because if you're better informed, you might feel a little bit more empowered, right? So, all right. Well, Jess, thank you so much for your time and your advice and your practical tips. I think it's going to be very, very helpful for the viewers and listeners of the show. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And stay safe.
You too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll keep in touch, and maybe we'll speak to you again, depending on how this all unfolds. So take care, and thanks again for your time. So now we've heard about practical ways that you can keep yourself safe in different environments from the security expert. And I think he had some really good tips. But now let's move to the psychological impact that a lot of these incidents of racism are having on all of us, but then also the overall psychological impact that this virus and the fear and the panic is having on just everyone. We're all anxious. We're all worried. We're all nervous. And some people are now starting to get a little depressed about staying at home and not going to work and not being able to go out. So I'm now going to bring in Sherry Wang. She has been on the show before. She's a PhD assistant professor at the Department of Counseling Psychology at Santa Clara University. Sherry, it's so good to have you back on the show.
Thanks, Maylee. So good to be here.
Yeah. So from an overall psychological perspective, this crisis is clearly having an impact on everyone, right? I mean, it's causing everyone to be more anxious and worried and scared. And what are you seeing from a psychological point of view? I mean, I'm sure you're seeing the same thing.
Absolutely. And I'm also a counseling psychologist. And so this is really affecting our landscape too, in terms of provision of care,
right.
And what to do. And especially at a college counseling or at a college context, we're also seeing what happens with students being sent home and not being able to have the services that they need, despite during a time when there's so much upheaval. Yeah. So we're certainly seeing, I think with this anxiety, a lot of fear of what's unknown, and this disruption in our life that's actually taking away our routines. And I think part of it is the ambiguity of like, how long will this go?
Yeah.
How severe is this? And I think the biggest stressor that maybe we don't necessarily talk as much about is the ambiguity and the conflicting messages we get.
Yes.
Because we, on the one hand, are hearing like, this is a made-up disease. Like, it's ranged from this is made up to this is not that big of a deal to looking then at the numbers and the rates and how it's been globally affecting our citizens of this world,
right.
At a level that it's becoming a pandemic. And so the sense of like, who do I trust? Where are the authorities in this who are going to do something about it? Because a lot of the issues that we're seeing are also human errors.
Yeah.
Right? The problems are actually not just about the science or the medicine or the biological component to it. It's things like not having accurate quarantine procedures or not responding quickly enough and taking it seriously enough. Yep. And so these are things that are controllable. So I think it affects our sense of trust.
Which certainly doesn't help when you're already in a panic state, right? So when you see this kind of behavior of people panic buying and just, buying all this toilet paper and, trying to just hoard. I guess that's a natural reaction when you feel like you have no sense of control. So talk to me about that. Why are we seeing this kind of behavior?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think to begin with, there is a herd mentality there.
Yeah.
And a sense, I mean, we're social creatures. And so when we see other people responding in this panicked way, we're going to think, what do you know that I don't know?
Right.
Right. So there's a FOMO piece too, this fear of missing out on something that actually could have what feels like a life or death consequence to it.
Yeah.
And we do know psychologically that retail therapy is a form of control. Right. So stockpiling is a way of getting a sense of I have things under control. There's so much that I don't know, but here are the things that I can do.
Right.
And so, in that sense, though, there's actually an exoticizing, sensationalizing that we're doing. In the media, we're seeing that. I'm seeing a lot of it in my social media accounts, too, of people taking photos of ransacked stores and aisles. And that actually perpetuates this fear of scarcity.
Of
right?
course.
And that fear of scarcity is actually creating a real scarcity.
Right.
That's actually the problem, is that we're getting messages too, just not as loudly, that products will continue to be shipped and that the grocery stores are going to be continued to be stocked.
Right.
But when you see these exoticized images and these kind of, oh my gosh, what's going to happen all over your media, then you're going to rush out and buy things even though you don't know if you need it.
Yeah, it's the sense of doom that's being created. So again, that's perpetuating that panic that everyone's feeling. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Sherry. I saw those photos and obviously I'm, a journalist, so I know this is going on. I have deliberately not gone to the store because I'm like, I don't want to participate in this. I really don't. So I've chosen to deliberately not do that because I didn't want to get myself caught up in this hysteria and whirlwind.
Yes. Yeah. So, same here. I've actually also been very intentional about not taking pictures of any of that to post to, fan the flames, because I think what we're also promoting are a lot of values that are not actually relevant to what's happening now, but it's about consumerism and capitalism.
Yeah.
And so this is all of it in its best. And in some ways, I think it's a little spoiled on our part too, in a westernized developed country to act this way because, we're used to getting things when we want it, how we want it. I mean, Prime, have it in a day, have it in 2 days, have it within a few hours. And so I think we're also not used to, and not accustomed to the possibility of like, well, I want it now, but it's not available. I have to wait a day or 2 days.
Yeah, it's the idea of scarcity that I don't think a lot of Americans are used to because we have lived in, luxury and, we've never really, been impoverished for many decades, right? So this is something new to a lot of folks in this country, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's also, created the sense of, oh my God, I have to get it. And this behavior of greed almost, isn't it? I mean, that's the ugly side of what's happening with this crisis.
It's every man for himself kind of mentality because when you stockpile on things that you may not need, what you're doing is you're taking away resources from the next person who might need it.
Right.
And it's really, there's something about the stockpiling too that's really for folks who are privileged enough to be able to buy things a month ahead of time because there are people who do not have the resources to prepare a month ahead of time. And our mentality is, I got to get it now. Well, then what happens if we do run out for the people who finally have a paycheck to be able to pay for it and to go to the store and the stores are empty?
Right. Well, so let's now talk about the impact this is having on people who are now having to stay at home. And, we can't do our normal activities. Like you said, we can't go to the movies. We can't go to events. Sporting events are all canceled. Parties are canceled. My cousin, who was supposed to get married March 28th, he had to postpone his wedding. So these are all things that are affecting every one of us. And then to be told to stay at home. Stay at home because that's the way we're going to control this virus. But clearly that's having an impact on people individually, the sense of isolation, depression. Some of my friends are joking, but they're like, I am overeating, so I'm going to gain 10 pounds, so all of that, right? So talk to me about those effects and how people can deal with that and maybe, some tools to deal with that.
Yeah, I think right now what we're seeing is going to be, we're going to see more mental health issues come up. We're not even talking about the possibility too, depending on family systems of interpersonal violence, so other safety issues that may be happening or for folks who are homeless. I mean, there's just so many mental health related issues that we are going to see happen that are actually going to have a more longstanding effect beyond this disease. But this is the time where our routines are disrupted, our major life events like weddings are disrupted, our support systems are also disrupted too. So, in thinking about, I think the anxiety part is really that we don't know what's happening, but I think the challenge is even for those who we care for, and I'm thinking about the particularly at-risk populations, older populations, that these are also going to be the same population who are going to be the least technologically savvy. Probably. For us to be able to reach. And so the worry for older populations, that I think that's a part of it too, that even if you are able-bodied and not immunologically compromised, you're going to be worrying about the people you love because you can't see them. Yep. Or if you're alone, I think this is a time where people are wondering, like, if I died, would anybody even know?
Yeah.
Right? We're not going to work. We're not having routines where people will be like, hey, so-and-so is missing. Where have they gone?
Right.
So I think there's a lot of existential questioning too. People joke about this actually. I've been hearing the joke of, hey, we're going to realize after this, how many meetings really could have been emails.
Yeah, that's true. It might shrink the number of stupid meetings and useless meetings that everyone has to go to. So that could be the silver lining in all of this.
But along with that, though, I think is questioning of what is my contribution then? Like what,
what's my purpose?
Yeah, particularly in, I think, westernized countries where work is so much a part of our identity as well.
That's true.
We are actually going to be questioning our own value. Like, what do I actually bring to the table? What is the meaning of what I do? Like, if these meetings can be non-existent, if some of these things can be streamlined, then can I be streamlined?
Right.
Like what is my right? What is
wow.
my contribution? So I think we're going to be wondering some of these things because we have time to, and because we also don't have the social structures in place that reward us.
Yeah.
So this is potentially an opportunity too for us to assess and to be able to redefine the structure of how we want to live our lives. For many of us, this is going to be the first time, maybe the first time that we get to decide what our schedules look like.
Okay.
So there may be meetings that we have to attend at certain times, but we are having to decide, when do I want to eat? When do I want to do exercise, hydrate myself, maybe watch TV? Because in some ways, so much time in a day can be inundating and overwhelming because we've never had that. People have always told us what to do. And so no one is doing it for us.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There's no structure. All of a sudden, people have no structure and they're at home. So what are some practical tips then for people who are feeling anxious? A lot of people are saying they can't sleep. I gotta be honest with you, Sherry. I haven't slept well in probably a month. And I know that it's the anxiety, the sort of right below the surface for me. And even though I'm a journalist who has covered the most hideous, most dramatic stories around the world, this one is so intense on so many levels that it is even affecting somebody like me. So I can't imagine how other people are feeling who have never even seen or witnessed or experienced something even half as intense.
Yeah. One of the things that I have been looking at and kind of reflecting on is that I am seeing more and more posts on how to attend to our mental health during this time, especially with the social distancing and the quarantine and the social isolation. And one of the, I think, limitations to a lot of those articles, though, has been it's really focused on the intrapsychic, on the individual. So there's recommendations, certainly. And I think we need to talk about these things like having a consistent routine schedule, right? Connecting with friends and family and loved ones, really scheduling in FaceTime or video sessions. And, so I think there are a lot of individual things we can do. And I definitely, maybe we can talk about that a little bit later. But one of the things that I think is important to contextualize all of it is that if we purely focus on how do I get through this time, I don't think that will actually alleviate the anxiety, because we can evolve all we want to at home. I can develop a hobby. I can talk to my loved ones. I can bake, or I can really make sure that I'm taking care of my immune system by sleeping and eating and doing all of these things. But I know that this culture that we're living in is one that is discriminating, ostracizing, blaming, shaming, shunning people. And so that's going to be there. Even if I am taking good care of myself, knowing that we are living in a place of fear right now. Right.
Totally.
And I think about when people say everything we read about in psychological literature and even philosophical and spiritual work has really been to live meaningfully means that we feel like we're contributing in some way. Right? Yes. That we are contributing to the larger good or the larger, it's not just for ourselves.
Yep.
And I think this is the time to do that for our own personal health and well-being too. That social isolation doesn't mean that there's no community or solidarity. Like, we have to feel a sense of community and solidarity and a contribution to our communities and to this larger society, I think, for us to also feel okay enough.
It's so interesting you bring that up, because you're now starting to see on social media the ways in which people are trying to help others during this crisis, right? Sort of stepping outside of themselves to be a little bit more compassionate. There's a new Facebook group that has sprouted up around the world that's, highlighting the gestures that people are doing for each other. And so I guess that's in line with what you're suggesting, is that, sometimes, during these periods of crisis, you have to have a sense of purpose, maybe giving back or doing something outside of yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm actually part of my alumni group. So this is maybe a shout out to my college, right? My college, Smith College, we have an alumni group, and people have been posting for the last week of what can we do to help our communities. And so, so free yoga classes, like whatever skill set you have, can you offer to people?
Right.
For a lot of folks who maybe are not. So for me, I think I was just telling you that I'm in one of the place or shelter. I forgot what it's called now.
Shelter in place.
Shelter in place.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'm in one of those counties. And so there's lots of folks who are not able to go to work because they're not considered a critical healthcare worker or the nature of their work. But could we potentially, or could they potentially provide short-term care for people whose children, right, are going to be home, but maybe their neighbor has to go to work?
Right.
Are there things we can do in terms of online tutoring? Are there things we can do like read stories online?
Right.
You know,
right.
to
Which we're
children?
seeing. Yeah.
So
Exactly.
we're seeing a lot of these kind of community bonding and kind of reaching out opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that is the beauty in the age that we live in, with technology allowing us to make that connection with people. I know that Chris Martin from Coldplay, he did a free concert online for fans. And then I guess today, John Legend is going to do the same thing. So people are finding creative ways in which to provide services, or at least, share in this together. Because listen, this is affecting everyone. No one is excluded from this, which is why this is so unusual, right? This is everyone. It's unbelievable. This has never happened before, right? Yeah. So there is that shared community in terms of, we're all in the crisis at the same time.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. I do think for Asian Americans, it is compounded. Thinking about the mixed messages that as an American you're facing in terms of, so the Trump administration is saying this thing, CDC is saying this thing. I'm seeing in news stations around the world that this is what's happening. Like what is happening? I think for Asians living in westernized society, there's actually another part of confusion about things like face masks that in this context, you don't wear one because it actually makes you potentially at risk for being physically victimized.
Yeah,
you could be violently attacked for wearing a face mask. And we're hearing, too, from health guidelines that wearing a face mask is not actually helpful for your health in this context. But if you go in an Asian context, everyone is wearing it. And it's actually a problem for you not to. So then I hear people say things like, listen to credible sources. And I wonder, like, how do you determine who's credible?
Yeah, it depends on the perspective, right? And it also depends on the culture and all of that. Yeah.
And the context.
Yeah, and the context. Well, speaking of Asians, this is why we talked the last time on the show, which was the growing racism that we're witnessing all over the world, definitely here in the U.S., against Asians just because they're Asian, because people are looking for a scapegoat, blaming it on China for the virus, and therefore all Asians are to blame. And, some of the stories every day we're hearing about it. Some of them are just god awful, real physical assaults, a father and child getting knifed, because they were at a grocery store. I mean, it's truly amazing. Right. So that is obviously adding to an extra layer of anxiety and fear for Asians. I myself also now think about it, can't be helped. So can you give us some practical tips on how to deal with that kind of anxiety?
Well, I mean, I think if there had to be a silver lining in some ways, it's that because this is something everyone is experiencing now, right? In terms of social isolation, distancing, that everyone is kind of getting a taste in some ways of what it's been like to be Asian, or even perceived as Asian, that you don't have to be sick, or you don't even have to be associated with China or Asia to be perceived as a potential health threat, that we are all health threats to each other in some ways, and that in that sense we're all protecting each other to not expose one another to this disease. And so I think, I hate to say it this way, but it is in some ways a chance to look at how a disease is actually an invisible epidemic and not one that we can target on the basis of race.
Right. But they are, though. People are. That's the problem. Right. I mean, other people who might, be at risk who are not Asian, these racists aren't going to look at them and be like, well, it's your fault. And they're not gonna say that. They'll just be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or they won't want to hang out with them. But they certainly aren't gonna blame them for it, like Asians are being blamed. So Trump
actually just tweeted last night and called it the Chinese virus. And
no, Sherry, just today in a press conference, in his latest press conference, a reporter asked him, "You tweeted and calling it the Chinese virus. And he completely doubled down. He didn't take it back. And he twisted it saying, well, China is blaming us, and, tried to turn it around that way. And then he was pressed again, and he didn't retract it. So, again, when you are constantly being fed this kind of information from the president, that's going to perpetuate that stereotype, and it's going to fuel the racist assaults. Not everyone, of course. And the good thing is that this is getting out there in terms of what's happening to the Asian community. So therefore, a lot of people are starting to stand up for us, saying it's wrong, and yet it's still happening multiple times every day, everywhere. Yeah. So.
And I think because we're seeing it happening at so many levels, we Asians knew this was coming. I think, I think other people had not seen it affect our community as much as it has, but it certainly is happening. And it's going to just be more and more explicit because we have leaders who are actually doubling down on language like that and allowing them to happen. Right. And so I actually think in some ways, we are actually all going to be more exposed to social media because we're isolated, right? We're going to find ways to connect.
Very true.
The ways.
Yeah.
And so social media actually is a place for us to be able to express ourselves while having time to think about how we want to convey the message we want to convey. And in a time right now, I think, where there is overt racism and the blame and discrimination and unleashed anxiety. I mean, that's really what it is.
The fact that I think at this moment, we're all being taught a lesson about sharing in our experiences and making people more aware that these things are happening. And that, I feel like that gives us a sense of empowerment to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a time where, the beauty of social media is that we are going to see people write really inappropriate things, and we are actually going to have a chance to be able to respond, to actually collect our thoughts and think about it, to weigh which battles to fight, how we want to fight it, and then to do it not only in a way where we're getting our points across, but I think we as Asian Americans actually get to role model how to do it in a classy way, how to educate, how to in some ways showcase this is how we treat one another, and this is how we can discuss facts and all be scared about the same disease without actually having to resort to reactive, impulsive, violent rhetoric.
It is hard though when you do see these violent acts just come out of nowhere, and knee-jerk response would be to want to lash out against that person, right? Eye for an eye kind of attitude. So some of the stories we've been hearing, people haven't been doing that yet because I think they're so stunned that this is actually happening, that they're literally paralyzed when it happens, and because they're trying to process that, did this really happen to me? So again, I mean, I think there's this fine line of reacting in a negative way versus in a positive way, but I think that's where the confusion lies sometimes, right? We don't really know what should we be doing here when this happens because it's so alarming and so unexpected.
Yeah, and I there really is no one right cookie cutter answer too, right? Depending on what you're experiencing and how you're sitting with it. I mean, it may be that you're so shocked you just don't say anything.
Right.
You need time to really think about it, or you might hear and then because it's so damaging and because you're so isolated, you internalize it and believe in it.
Yeah.
And so needing time to kind of combat it, right? And then there may be folks then who need to vent about it with other people, or laugh about it, or write about it. And so I think it's important for us not to shame anyone for how they respond or don't respond. I want to encourage people to know that you can respond however way you want to, in a way that's going to recharge you, right? And if it's to not act in the moment, then don't. But know that you can, right? And because I think sometimes people don't respond, and it's not because they don't want to, it's because they don't know how or where or who, or that that option even exists. So I think we want to empower our community to be able to speak up, because a lot of times people are not speaking up, probably because we are largely immigrants, right? Yeah. Or children of immigrants. And so we don't know what pathways exist to be able to fight for justice. And so I think the more we give people the resources, the more people know that that's an option and we don't have to suffer silently.
Right. But also approach it in an intelligent, rational way. Because I know that a lot of these messages that we've been getting at the Mei Lee show and also at Next Shark, some people are saying, get your guns, fight. I mean, things that are not really the right answer. And I get it. I get that people are angry, right? I'm angry. I get angry when I see these videos and hear these stories. But man, just adding fuel to the fire is just not the answer. But I get it. I mean, I guess, so I guess the good point, Sherry, I mean, we have to understand the feelings that everybody's feeling.
We have to. And I think we have to know, too, that there is a double standard because people are coming at us in a hostile, aggressive, non-intellectual way.
Yeah.
And so it is unfair to say, well, why do I have to respond that way? And I think that's why it's really important to understand this larger context of racism, because people have said, even Asian people have said to me, this fear of this disease and attributing it to Asians and Chinese people, that's not racist. That's a race thing. We're just saying it started with your people, right? Mm-hmm. It started in this country.
In China, yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of misassumptions there. First of all, I'm not from China. So to begin with, there's so many microaggressions.
Yeah,
but the other part of it is that that's not actually that is race-based, but it's racist because we don't actually call any disease white. Right. We don't put white people or white culture to the same standards that people of color always have had to. I'm thinking, for example, the criticisms we have right now of particularly Chinese government. And there's a history, right, of the Chinese Communist Party being dishonest.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
They're not transparent. It's not transparent. Yeah.
And could this disease have been prevented earlier, given that we're learning that in October, November, they had information? Yeah, absolutely. So did the government lie? Probably. But I think the scary part is people are attributing it then to the people of China are like this, and then broadly then to Asian people can't be trusted.
Right.
But we actually fail to think about the fact that actually the U.S. government lies all the time too. And in this particular,
every government lies.
Right, every government does.
Politicians.
But in this case, this disease too, actually, we've had a government that has minimized it and could have stopped it earlier too, but has actually minimized it and disregarded it and has made it worse. But we're not going to put them up to the same standard that we would put other governments up. And so there is a race component to it where people of color's government are going to be held to a different standard than white people. Yeah. And that I think it's important to acknowledge is not fair.
Although I will push back a little bit on the criticism, the lack of maybe not holding U.S. government to the higher standard, because I think people are at this point because they see what's happened and how it's been mishandled. So I feel like, a lot of folks here in this country are saying, wait a minute, this has not been handled properly.
I agree, but we can separate government from people, right? People won't look at Americans and be like, you must be just like your government.
Right, that's true. Good point.
But we do with other countries.
Right. That's true.
You represent your government.
Yeah, sweeping generalities when it comes to other foreign, places and governments and people, right? Yeah.
Right. So it is so unfair. I get it. So unfair as an Asian person to always have to take the high road.
Yeah.
And to have no role models for that.
Well, again, I think that's why some are reacting in a way where enough of this, we're resorting to violence. And again, I don't think that's the answer because that's a short-term solution that could result in very bad things.
No, and that doesn't get at the community and solidarity that we are trying to build because we are being attacked.
Right. Well, so Sherry, before we go then, can you just provide just some words of wisdom from a therapeutic, psychological perspective on how to get through this crisis? I know that's a very big question because there's so many facets to this, but just so people who are listening and watching can just maybe implement some of this stuff into their everyday life.
I think it's important for each person, right, to think about kind of what they want their routines to be like, right, in terms of right now, everything being so disrupted and all of us giving ourselves a little time to just even come to grips with what's happening. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a period of adjustment. And I think if we're perfectionistic and we're high achieving, which most people tend to be, and want to be actually, we're actually going to struggle the most because nothing is going to be perfect right now because we're in uncharted waters. We don't know how any of this works.
Right.
And I think one of the things that I'm seeing a lot of people saying is don't do this and don't do that, right? Like don't watch too much news. Don't inundate yourself with too much overwhelm. And I think while that's true, I think we have to make sure that there's no one cookie cutter response for every single person, because everyone's different.
Right.
I actually am of the belief that the more we know, the better. And because we are all distanced right now, we are going to want to seek out more media and more resources. And I don't think it's a bad thing to seek out lots of different resources. And then we have to decide for ourselves what we want to do with that. That's going to be really hard, because I think when you grow up in a country like the US, you assume that you just will hear one thing and that will be the right thing. You assume and accuracy and objectivity. We have a lot of values like autonomy and individualism that are being challenged right now too with this disease. Right. And so I think there's cultural pieces that are challenging the American way of life that we're not used to. Because social distancing, that's actually for collectivistic good too. It's for public health good too.
Yeah.
But if we have these assumptions of like, why didn't I do it for myself? Why do I have to protect other people? That's going to make it not meaningful.
Incredibly selfish and irresponsible. So, I mean, those people are being called out, thank God.
Yes.
And that's why some mayors and governors are saying, okay, no more restaurants, no more bars. You guys aren't getting it. So sometimes those stricter policies have to be put into place. But, I'll just share some personal stories. I do think the social distancing and the isolation and people not doing things anymore, it does have a psychological impact because, human connection is what we're all about, at least most of us. And so when you can't even shake someone's hand or give your friend a hug or even see them, that's going to have an impact. I also have seen both the good in people. And so I am on so many different threads, text threads on my phone now. So many different groups of friends are constantly checking in on each other, which I think is fantastic. So there's a closeness that's being developed. But the crisis also brings the worst out in people in terms of people dropping off and just freaking out. And there's a friend who all of a sudden he's just dropped off completely. So it's interesting to see how people individually respond to something like this, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think important for us to not shame one another for how they're coping with it and just kind of reach out to one another. My secret hope in all this, actually, if there could be one, is that we bring back calling each other again.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Voices.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And not just posting video and being able to interact in that way.
Yeah. And I think some of that is already happening. I'm getting calls from people where I didn't, we wouldn't talk. We would just text each other. So yeah, I think there are a couple of different ways in which we can look at the silver lining in all of this. We got to get through it though. We got to get through it. And I think supporting each other, talking about these issues openly like this on a show like this and, in other formats. But, Sherry Wang, always appreciate you. And thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll speak again about this and other issues, but let's keep each other posted on what's happening. And if we need to revisit this again, we sure will on the show. Okay.
Thank you.
Until then, stay safe.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, so hopefully that episode was helpful in terms of getting some practical tips about safety and security and just the reality of what we might be facing short-term and long-term. So we do have to be smarter out there and just, but also be level-headed. Okay, so cooler heads will prevail, I hope. But I get it if you feel really unsafe and insecure. So do what you got to do to create that sense of security. And then also from a psychological point of view, I know these are tough times. Look at me. I mean, I'm at times just feel a little bit frozen and paralyzed because of everything that's happening. But we have to find ways to give ourselves comfort. Be there for each other, talking on the phone, using technology to keep in touch with friends, family, exercising in some way, even if you have to do it at home, do it at home. I do a combination of home exercise and I'll get outside with my dogs. So that certainly helps. So, I'm not going to lie. This is rough, right? This is rough for every one of us. But we have to choose to stick it out and do what we need to do to survive. And after this, we will thrive. And I'm really hoping that the awareness that we're trying to bring here with the Mei Li Show will stick and hopefully make a difference in positive ways. So that, yeah, I mean, that's my hope. That's certainly my hope. So guys, I want you to take care of yourselves, stay safe, and you'll be hearing from me again. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. Okay? All right, until next time.